And when my parents got divorced, it wasn't just like living in prosperity and privilege anymore. I went and earned my own money now.
Josh Waxman is an experienced insurance strategist dedicated to helping individuals break free from financial constraints.
And so what made you go from Philly to now here in Miami?
But then I had an opportunity to open up my own Philly cheesesteak spot, and that was my childhood dream. So I dropped out of college and went and opened up a store at Temple University in Philly, and I loved it. And then COVID happened. Then my stores got looted during the protests and the riots in Philly. And then I got canceled on social media. And then I got my franchise agreements taken away from me. And after prayer and meditation for a whole week on the beach in South Beach, I made a decision to sell my stores, leave Philadelphia, and come back to Miami.
So if a regular person still wants to be able to get ahead by doing life insurance policies and stuff like that, what's like the minimum that you would be able to professionally suggest?
It depends what you want to use it for. Is it most important just to get to California at some point but stay in their budget? Or do they need to get to California in 5 hours no matter what? And if so, this is the price of that.
Josh, welcome to the Attractive Mindset Podcast, man.
Thank you for having me.
This guy here, I'm telling you, for everybody who doesn't know who he is yet, this individual from the first time we met, he just stands out in the room. Great presentation. Got a chance to actually be a part of his event the other day, and just seeing the excitement from people wanting to meet him, from getting ready to, Josh, this, that. It's like being around a real-time celebrity, and it's cool to meet everyday people that are willing to not only be your peer, but be across from you, be next to you, give you information, bundle of information. And the information that he gives is typically not what you would learn on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm going to let Josh tell you a little bit more about himself. We got Josh Waxman.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here. I grew up in Philly, in the Philly cheesesteak business.
Yeah.
So I grew up in an entrepreneurial household, and I always loved business and always loved being successful. But I also, deep down inside, am mostly focused on improving consciousness, because if there was ever a choice of what's more important, money or consciousness, consciousness is everything that there is. And so I know that you're deep into the brain, deep into mindset. I'm very into all of that as well. And to me, sometimes I say this, but money's kind of like a front for me to actually succeed in the world, because we live in a world in 2024 where you need money to operate. But consciousness is really all that there is. And my passion is improving my consciousness and showing other people how to improve their consciousness. And you have to know the things that you talk about the amygdala, prefrontal cortex, and hippocampus in order to be able to be successful in life and be able to enjoy that. Because you could be successful and not know anything about that stuff, but you're not going to be fulfilled or be happy and be grateful in your life otherwise.
No, 100%, man. And so for the people who don't know, what exactly do you coach people on, teach people, guide them through, on a day-to-day basis?
Absolutely. Most of my business is all about the infinite banking concept. So I show business owners, entrepreneurs, high net worth individuals, and real estate investors how to utilize cash value life insurance to fund cash flowing, appreciating assets such as real estate and their businesses.
And so those two terms in the same sentence is going to raise red flags in people's heads, like life insurance and making money.
Yes.
How does that even work?
Absolutely. It's interesting because most people just think about life insurance as money that goes to your family when you die. But when I first got started, that's all I knew about too. And then I started getting deeper into the concept of how wealthy people use life insurance, and how life insurance used to be used back in the 30s and 40s before the stock market was created, before the index funds, right when the Federal Reserve was being created, in the early 10s and 20s of the history of money. And the reality is that most people used whole life insurance as their banking system, as their bank account, because it was guaranteed money. It was backed up by other insurance companies, and it was a safe place to put your money. And so as I learned more about that, I started making my practice and my agency more niched down into those things, because that's really when I go down the rabbit hole, that's really what I'm passionate about, is how can I help society get out of the shackles that we're in financially? How can we get out of the banking system that they create money out of thin air? How can we get out of the situation where we're turning all of our money over to other people, paying taxes when we started the American Revolution because of taxes? And now we just fork over money to the government and then they go spend it on war. And I'm not even into any of that stuff. So, this is how the backing of the knowledge that I had of the banking system, I've always wanted to speak out about it, and I never had a platform to be able to do that. And life insurance, specifically cash value life insurance, specifically even more so whole life insurance, is the platform to be able to utilize something to be able to create your own banking system and have freedom from the banks.
No, that whole concept is just dope, and the main thing that I can say to something like that is, I don't remember the name. I was trying to remember the name. It was like a network marketing company that sold life insurance. And I feel like they put a bad taste in everybody's mouth about life insurance because
Primerica.
They got labeled as like a pyramid scheme or whatever. And so what's the difference between what they offer or sell versus the life insurance you're talking about?
Would you like more information on understanding how to break free from the financial shackles? If so, you deserve to have a free financial freedom strategy call with me, Josh Waxman. You can reach out to me directly at 305-345-9102 for your opportunity to have financial freedom today. Yeah, that's a great question. That is what most people think about. Now, I will put a little asterisk on that and say they're a $7 billion company and they're publicly traded on the stock market. So it is what it is. But their whole concept was buy term and invest the difference. And what I'll say that again is buy term insurance and invest the difference in mutual funds. So most people that work at Primerica have a life insurance license and a securities license. And the whole reason for that was a great reason at the time. The CEO and founder of Primerica, Art Williams, was a high school football coach, and his dad died, and he had whole life insurance, which is most of the stuff that I focus on. And his dad only had $20,000 of whole life insurance, and his family was struggling after his dad died. So he blamed his family's financial struggle on the fact that they didn't have that much life insurance. And somebody at a family dinner, I read his book, Coach. It's a great book for any leader. Now, this book, Coach, by Art Williams, he talks about how his friend came over and said, hey, if you would have had term insurance instead, you would have probably had $200,000 of death benefit instead of $20,000. And that's true, right? So I like to do whole life and term combined because you get more death benefit. But specifically to utilize it for banking system, it has to be whole life insurance because term doesn't build any cash and term expires 98% of the time. You only have term for 10, 20, 30 years. And so, yes, if you died early, term will give you way more bang for your buck. But that's if you die early. And most people don't die early.
And what's considered early?
Early would be whenever that term is supposed to expire.
Gotcha.
I'm 28 years old. The maximum you can get a term for is 30 years. So that means if I'd have to die before I'm 58 years old for that to be able to happen. And you can get a term policy when you're older too, but it's really just if you die before the term expires, it's gone. Your family doesn't get any life insurance. I think it's important to have term life insurance to cover death benefit needs for your family so your wife and kids don't have to suffer if you die. But if you want to use it for a banking system, you have to have it be paying dividends. And the only way to have it pay dividends is through whole life insurance, not IULs and universal life insurance. That builds cash, but there's no dividends. And so that's why whole life insurance has to be the vehicle. And back in the 80s when Primerica was founded, it was really founded in late 70s. But in the 80s, interest rates were super high. So buying term for really cheap, because term life insurance is like $20 to $100 a month, super cheap, right? and then investing it in the market during the time period when the market was booming. Like literally interest rates on a CD in your high yield savings account or at a bank was 16% in 1984.
Damn.
So you had guaranteed money at 10 to 15%, like no problem. Now we don't have that privilege. And so, you have to find somewhere to go to get that kind of return. And then people look for risky investments in the world today. And I'm a big believer in Warren Buffett's number 2 rule of money, which is don't lose your money. And number 2 is to read number 1 again. And I just don't want to lose my money. And there's only 2 places I know that you could never lose your money. And that's life insurance and multifamily, specifically multifamily real estate. And those are the 2 things I put my money into.
No, that's dope. And so you growing up in Philly, were your parents part of the life insurance process, or is that something that developed with you?
It definitely developed with me. Now I know that both of my parents had term policies, but no, my dad runs Philly cheesesteak franchises. Growing up, my mom was an attorney, and then when she had kids, she stayed at home and brought us up. And then my parents got divorced when I was 13, and my mom went back to work to be a lawyer again. And my dad still, to this day, runs 2 Philly cheesesteak franchises. So I grew up in that business. And I didn't learn anything about life insurance from him, but I learned about business from him. And I learned about money from him. And my dad earns multiple 6 figures a year, but he's not wealthy. And especially after the divorce, he gave my mom everything. So for me, the turning point was when my parents got divorced. It wasn't just like living in prosperity and privilege anymore. I went and earned my own money now. And I was 13, 14 years old. And, I couldn't ask dad for $20 to go to the movies anymore. He would tell me to go ask mom. I give mom all of my money. And then I would go to mom and she'd be like, go back to dad. He's the one that makes all the money. And I'd be like, so what am I supposed to do? And I just made a decision at a young age to go learn how to make my own money. And I started learning about money. Now, my dad brought me to like Tony Robbins events and told me to read Rich Dad Poor Dad when I was in high school and stuff like that. He gave me the resources, but he never gave me anything financially. He just told me where to go. He led me to the water. I drank it. And I have a little sister, and she's super outgoing and super smart and super great at everything she does. She never drank the business water. And so we have different paths in life. And that's just something I was always hanging out with dad, learning from him about business. And I think it started off just wanting to be with dad more so than wanting to learn about business. And I think learning about business was a byproduct of that. But neither of my parents had any knowledge of life insurance. Neither of them invested in any real estate beside the home we lived in. I think my dad's really good at making money. Not really good at keeping it, doesn't really understand building wealth. He makes multiple 6 figures, doesn't keep any of it. And now that I'm in the wealth business, I think that's a motivator of that. But when I talk to him, he knows how to make money, but he doesn't have anything to show for it after 40 years of running restaurants. And so I think that's a major motive for me on why I do what I do also.
And so I'm glad you brought that point up, because a question that I've always had is what now happens, if you're on this path of life, he has that path of life, and, in the future, when he's ready to stop that, how does that business continue?
We just had that conversation. He was just here he came down here for Father's Day. We just had this conversation for the first time ever. And, it's still a cash flowing, appreciating asset. So it comes down to like, he was asking me if I left the businesses to you, would you run them? Would you find someone to run them, or would you sell them the day after I died? I said, I don't know yet, but I probably would do 1 and 2 first before I did 3. Even if I had to fly up there once a month and make sure everything's cool and go get some cash from the business and bring it back down, or whatever I have to do. But like, I think that's the key. But I think he always thought, and I always thought too, that I was going to do that forever. And so I even owned 2 of the franchises myself. And one thing led to another, and now I'm not in the business anymore. But it comes down to, I think God had a different path for me. Yeah.
And so what made you go from Philly to now here, Miami?
Sure. So I went to University of Miami for college. And the reason originally, I was just telling him in the car, originally the reason is I wanted to get the heck out of Philly. I wanted to leave, my family. My parents were awesome, but they fought a lot. Like if you met my parents, you'd love them. They're really cool. They're fun. But I took all the crap. I was the one managing my parents, making sure my little sister was okay. And I think for me at 18 years old, going to University of Miami was like, I get to go 1,800 miles away and I don't have to talk to anyone or deal with anything anymore. But then I had an opportunity to open up my own Philly cheesesteak spot, and that was my childhood dream. So I dropped out of college and went and opened up a store at Temple University in Philly, and I loved it. And then opened up another store in Center City, and then COVID happened. Then my stores got looted during the protests and the riots in Philly. Then I made a post on social media how we should all love each other and stop rioting. And then I got canceled on social media. And then I got my franchise agreements taken away from me.
Oh, wow.
And then I came to Miami for a week to figure my freaking life out. And after prayer and meditation for a whole week on the beach in South Beach, I made a decision to sell my stores, leave Philadelphia, and come back to Miami.
Wow. That's a whole...
I know you didn't know that part.
I didn't know that part. That's a whole... Wow.
That's my life story in a couple minutes.
Okay. And so, no, that brings up a whole different perspective. Because you opened something up, you managed it, had it run, and then it was shut down by something you can't really predict for.
Yes.
And so, that brings me towards a certain question. What was your life like during the height of COVID?
The height of COVID, my life was interesting because it was challenging. I was in Philly. We had to cut 50% capacity in our stores. And I'm very not into the government and what the government says. I'm very free and libertarian in that mindset. And so when people would come into my store, Philadelphia is a very liberal city. And I'm very not political, but I'm just talking facts, right? But people would come in with their masks and be like, am I allowed to come into the store? And I'd be like, yeah, come on in. I was not following that. But during COVID, my store was also on a college campus. I had 2 of them and they were in the city. And so all the kids from Temple University went home. So college campus was closed. And then I'm in the middle of North Philadelphia. So... it's not the best area to be in.
Yeah.
My other store is in Center City, Philadelphia. And mostly everybody, beside my full-time people and managers, everyone else went home. They were all college kids. I didn't necessarily have to let go of them, but it was different. And so I was working a lot during COVID. In the height of COVID, there was only 1 or 2 people working in the store. We were getting slammed on Grubhub and Uber Eats and DoorDash instead of people coming into our store. And then we just changed what we were doing. And we were still doing the same amount of revenue, but now because we had to give Grubhub and DoorDash their fees, now we were kind of just scraping by financially. And then it was interesting because we weren't in a financial situation. But it wasn't like we were rocking and rolling in the business. And the real thing that changed all of it was the riots and the protests. My store got looted and I didn't know what to do. And I was like, this is a time. And I also was making a lot of videos on social media about how the whole situation was made up. And I believe that to this day. And it's just a conversation of that how can we come together during this time period? And instead of all of us coming together and loving each other, we were divided, both racially, number 1. We were divided literally 6-foot rule physically, number 2. And we had to stay at home with the whatever it was called, so we really, I'm a big believer in love and peace, and I love the human race as a combo. And I think that whole situation was very challenging time for world history and American history. And I mean, my day to day was I was still working the same amount of hours. It was just different stuff.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
And, that brings the perspective of aftermath, because now information comes out that, Dr. Fauci or whatever was lying, and 6 foot rule made up and all of this stuff. And so how does that make someone like yourself feel when you were saying that the whole time? Like, hey,
it would be ego or pride for me to say like, oh, I was right. Like, I'm not that type of person. I believe that God had different plans for me. I believe that I wasn't supposed to be in the restaurant business. I think it was my childhood dream to grow up and do that, to be like my dad. But then I think that God said, hey, I got bigger plans for you. You always wanted to go down back to Miami. And originally your game plan was I'm going to have to open up Philly cheesesteak spots all in the north and then move down all the way to the south till I can open up stores in Miami, and eventually I'll be there. He's like, hey, get out of the restaurant business. I'm going to loot your store. I'm going to close your store, and I'm going to force you to go to Miami, and you're going to have to figure something else out. And that's what I believe is like, hey, now I'm empowered to do something different in my life. I never thought I'd be wearing suits, running a finance business. Everyone that I grew up with, everyone that knew me up to age 25 would say Josh is going to own hoagie and cheesesteak places for the rest of his life. And I thought the same thing. So I think it comes down to, I still have the beliefs that I have about the world, but they're my beliefs for me to understand the world, like not to judge the world and not to put my judgments on the world, because I'm not God and I don't want to do that anymore. I can live in a state of knowing while also being able to operate in the landscape of the world today.
No, absolutely. That's really, you can tell you have some inner work done. Then you give an answer like that. Even from the first time I met you on the Seafair.
Yes.
Yeah, I met you on the Seafair, and we ate food together. I don't even remember how the first conversation started off, but it was just a good vibe. And you were like, hey man, what's up? Like,
yes,
you're cool, I'm cool. Yo, add me, hey, this and that. And meeting people authentically like that without having to talk about, business or money or anything like that, you start to develop a different type of relationship.
Yes.
No, that's super dope. And so you transitioning into the more entrepreneur, well, both are still entrepreneurship, but different. You're transitioning into where money is more so in a product or service versus like a physical location.
Yes.
How does that make you move as far as like creative wise?
Heard. What do you mean in a creative state?
So,
like mentally,
when they say what? People have like passion driven things.
Yes.
And so passion is usually often tied towards what we would call like a skill.
Heard.
Or most people would call a skill. But when you invest into something that's just good for you,
yes.
like that's what it ends up being. Like you're making a financial decision that's more so good for you, but is that your actual heart basis?
Heard. Absolutely. I always used to say to my dad, I wish I could just teach people at my restaurants about how to run the business. Like I wish I could skip the whole part of making the food, having to wrap the food and having to give it to a person, so I could just teach them about life and business. And I feel like being in the business I am today, I was able to skip that whole part. I don't have to make insurance policies. I got insurance carriers for that. I can just go add value and teach, train, and develop people on being an entrepreneur for themselves. Whereas now everyone that is on our team is 1099 independent contractors. They're all in business for themselves, and I can teach business and entrepreneurship skills to them. Before, everyone was making $8 to $15 an hour, and I was trying to teach them entrepreneurship skills when the reality is they wanted a paycheck. And I was trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
I was trying to coach them like, hey, I was an hourly employee too, but you can own your own store one day. And they're like, hey man, I just want to be able to buy a 6-pack of beer after work and watch the Eagles game. Like, so I think it allows me to be more creative every day because I don't have to do the work of the making the hoagies and the cheesesteaks. And I can really teach the skills of entrepreneurship, because in the finance world, specifically with what I'm doing, everyone is their own business owner. And yeah, they might come into the office that I operate the office, but I always say I pay the rent. It's my name on the office, but you run your own business in this office.
Yep.
And so there's skills to learn on how. This morning we were role playing on how to go talk to high net worth individuals and how to go talk to people. And those are skills that I like to teach. So it allows me to be more creative because I can be more who I am and not do things I have to do in order to get more creative. I can just be creative, which I think is important.
And so, for people who went to school for business administration and all the business stuff and everything, you getting into it from a different angle, different perspective, what would you say are some of your standard SOPs that you end up teaching your people within the line of work that you do?
Absolutely. Some standard SOPs for us are go meet people, go connect with those people, then go show those people what we do and see if what we do is something that's interests them. Period. I like to use an acronym in our office in sales specifically. I learned this in high school. It's called LIP. List, invite, presentation. Build a list, which is done by meeting people. Invite them, which is done by making phone calls or sending out text messages, and then present to them whatever value and service or product and service that you provide. And so that's a simple sales SOP. I think outside of that SOP that I operate in I teach the office is how to create an organized schedule is super important.
Yep.
That's I think that a lot that's probably not included in most people's SOPs. I think that should be the pre-SOP for any SOP, is to have a schedule for how to operate so that you can input your operating procedures in there. And it depends on your industry, but for the finance and insurance business, if you're not just banging the phones, cold calling, which I don't like to do, I like to build relationships and offer value. You gotta think of yourself as a business, and like, why would people want to come to you versus everyone else that does what you do? Why this podcast instead of another? Why this finance person instead of another? Why go to Lee's Hoagie House instead of Subway? There has to be something that people come to you for. And most of the time, the difference is you. You again, it's not an SOP at all, but you have to be great as a human being. You got to wake up early. You got to stay late. You got to work hard. You got to go to the gym. You got to pray and meditate. You got to do everything you got to do to operate your life. And whatever it is that you work at, just insert that work here. But you got to wake up early, pray, meditate, go to the gym, take a shower, eat some breakfast, go to work, whatever you do, come home, chill out for a little bit, and go to bed.
No, absolutely. It's foundation.
Yes.
Foundational principles. And so that leads me to a 2-path question. I'm gonna start with the part 1 first. And so the part 1 is how exactly did you get into life insurance?
Sure. Can I ask you what some SOPs are that you have in your business?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Don't be an asshole.
That's my
number one. Yeah, cool. That's my number one SOP. I don't really have standard SOPs like that because I feel like everybody does something different. Yes. And so that's where I differentiate. I have over 60 now. Yeah, I have over 60 1099 people. I pay multiple 6 figures a year, and I have like a few employees. Cool. And so being able to balance the structure of all of them, I let them know first and foremost, you are you.
Yes.
This is the principle that we have here of what we're trying to do. but I don't want to tell you how to do it. I just want to tell you what to do.
Heard.
And so when I have them go out for whether it's, production-esque kind of things, or if they go out for mindset coaching kind of things, it all has its category. But I say set your own pace of how you do things.
Yes.
Because for me, I'm the opposite of a little bit of what you have. I don't wake up early. I go to sleep super late.
Yes.
And so even last night, I went to sleep at 5 a.m.
Wow.
And so that's my structure every single day. And so when everybody else is asleep, I'm working in that gap. And so I don't really believe in it makes a difference whether you wake up early and do it
does,
or you go to sleep and do it
I agree.
late. And so whatever works for you, make it work.
Yeah.
And then, because I was in the Marine Corps,
cool.
I'm 90% disabled. And so I can't go to the gym like I used to. When I first came out, I was like 185 ripped, this and that. And I'm not that anymore, but I do have a pretty good diet. And so, one of our sponsors is Coco Love Coconut Water. And, we have like chiropractic stuff. Love. Facts. We have a lot of different, things that we tie into to make sure that, hey, my diet is where it needs to be. I just literally, before I walked in here, was on a call with my nutritionist. Most people don't even have a nutritionist.
I saw your acai bowl or whatever.
Yeah. So, like those are like my ideas of like healthy snacks and, being able to stay on top of it, eat good, it tastes good. And health doesn't have to be like this cheesy vegan thing that people have made it into. Like,
gotta
good
eat
food
meat
out there.
Go eat meat, man.
I like my protein and stuff. And so, that's my life of SOP. Cool. I only have one rule, is just don't be an asshole.
I like that.
So
there's a good book called When by Daniel Pink, and he talks about how it doesn't matter whether you're waking up early or staying up late, but you're usually one of the two. And whatever it is that you do, you just have to shift your schedule that way. I mean, I went to University of Miami for college. I wasn't waking up at 9 o'clock in the morning. I was going to bed at 5 o'clock in the morning, but my schedule was the same schedule, just shifted throughout the time period. And it sounds like yours is the same.
Literally. And I actually get more done in that time period because 90% of the other people that I work with or interact with are sleeping.
Yes.
And so that gives me time to realign, gives me time to read my books, change my lesson plans, all of that stuff. And so as a coach, for me, a lot of other coaches where I see them and where I see the gap start to increase over the years is they teach and say the same shit over and over and over and over again. And they fail to realize like, hey, 2022 is not 2023. 2023 is not 2024.
Yes.
2024 will not be 2025. And so we have to upgrade the way that we teach people things or, give out knowledge or whatever, because society does advance.
Yes.
And in advancing societies, we have to advance also with information. And so, yeah.
That's cool. What are some of the changes that you see happening from as we end Q2 of 2024 and start the second half of the year compared to how you did stuff at the end of last year or even the first half of this year? What are some things that you do that are different than you used to do?
So I'm weirdly enough, I have a 3-quarter year system.
Okay. And
so how I teach my people is the first quarter is what we call the everything quarter, the Hail Mary quarter, because life has been proven. And, I teach psychology things. And so life has been proven that momentum is a hell of a thing. People will literally win purely off of momentum if you keep doing something the right way over and over again. So it's a 4-month quarter. So 4, 4, 4.
Okay.
That's how we base our quarters pretty much. And the first from January. So January, February, March, April.
Yeah.
That is just talking to everybody. Bring everybody in. You get the discounted prices. You get the cheap prices. Some people even get free things. All of that. That's where you build your list. So you build your list in January, and that takes you into quarter 2, the next 4 months. And so in quarter 2, now is where we focus on courses and we focus on equipment. And so how can I increase my knowledge on whatever I worked on before? How can I increase my equipment? So upgrade cameras, lenses, lights, different accessories, get new stuff, whatever. And then for the next set of 4 months, you go into what we call the second wind. And on the second wind, this is where you present new things to people. And so the people that you already brought in from the first 4 months, now you already got them. They already liked you because if they're working with you, they're doing something. And so now you're instantly revitalizing that connection because you're saying,
cool.
hey, I have this now, or I present this now. And it works out so much. Like,
That's cool.
bruh, I'm telling you, when I kill people with no ads. I'm not running any ads right now.
Yes.
And the revenue that we pull in from a pure SEO standpoint, search engine optimization, and we can qualify for these optimization. If you were to go type in production company Hollywood, Florida right now, we're number one. If you go type in videography services in Hollywood, Florida, we're number one in this area and 3 surrounding areas. And so Google will always beat Instagram or Facebook or whatever, the amount of searches, the amount of whatever stuff. And so again, it's a numbers game.
Yes.
If I'm qualifying number one out of this many people searching for these keywords, this topic, this whatever, and I do this, and then comes in my business model.
Right.
I'm just the professional middleman. I say, hey, you're a photographer. Hey, you're a videographer. You can still have your own company. I want you to be great, but come be part of my company where I'm going to market for you on our website. We have a bigger reach. We've worked with Hard Rock Stadium, Denny's, Bacardi, Morgan Freeman, Amelia Estefan, South by Southwest, Rolling Loud. We have all the accolades. We have Forbes magazine. We just got published in it again. We have Elements. We have Vibe. We have all of that stuff. I'm going to take your brand to the next level. All I want is 18%.
Yeah.
Hey, okay, cool. 18% is not a big number until you start to realize that I have over 54 contractors in that business. And so when the business is run on a self-made model, those people have families to feed or themselves to feed or wives or husbands or whatever. And so they will never stop doing production stuff.
Yes.
I don't need to do production stuff. I put my camera down 3-4 years ago.
Do you give them a system for how to produce, or you let them produce in their own way?
I let them produce in their own type of way. Hey, just don't be an asshole.
Right.
Listen, just go out there, do whatever you want to do. Sometimes it requires you to be an asshole.
I understand.
You know, because I have my moments as well. But don't be an asshole. Be a good person.
Understood.
Is what I tell them, and that's what I teach them. Like, hey, do whatever. If you take video this way, if you take pictures this way, stand on that. If that's what makes you feel comfortable.
Right.
But understand that when we serve people, we're going to turn in our stuff on time. We're not going to be late with it. We're not going to give them a hard time. If it's something that we messed up on genuinely, give it to them for free. If anything, I'll give you the money.
Right.
I'll cover it, you know? And so I'm in a people-based business,
of course,
where we serve the customer. And so it's like, okay, cool. And so my 18% is multiplied by 54 different people consistently. And so if we take the average of what one person might make, you know, people can deduct how much I make from there. Right. It's not a secret, but at an individual level, I don't take that much from them. You know, I have some guys come up to me that are like, oh, you're crazy. I take 40%, you know, keep them 60%, whatever, when they do the same business model that I do. And I'm like, nah, I give more back to the people because I care more about community. Right. My goal in creating the companies that I created was to make a business where people can still be passionate about their creative side, but do it on their own time. Right. And so I've physically taken over 15 to 20 people out of 9-to-5 situations and have them create sustainable lives for themselves. Right. And so when it comes to community talk, I hear a lot of coaches or, you know, whoever, teachers talk about, oh, I care about community, but you're charging somebody $40,000 for an hour. Right. Your life program is $20,000. And this is where I start to meet people with knowledge. And, you know, in our conversation earlier with Sebastian, this is something that I want you to learn about as well, is industry research is different from market research. And so understanding what you do, your skill set around it, how you navigate that versus what is actually going on in the world matters.
And you need both.
Bro, released 2023 last year, September. As of SSA.gov, it's a real website. Anybody can go look this up. These are statistical facts for white, Black, Hispanic, and Asian. Black community makes $41,600 on average. White community makes $61,000. Asian makes $78,000. Hispanic makes $40,000. Oh. This is average statistics of the actual United States. And so if these are the average of people that we're talking to, how can we have outlandish prices that we're charging our market research, who we're around, what communities that we're in? Most people get solidified and stuck on Miami when they live out here. But in the past decade, doing market research again through these websites, in the past decade, there's been a 70% increase of millionaires in Miami, but there's been a 90% increase of millionaires in West Palm. And so most of my business comes from up north. And it comes in haymaker mode because there's a lot of money up north that's not tapped into.
Absolutely.
People have the brand name of Miami and they solidify Miami, but that's why I have an office that's like a good in between. Hollywood, I can still go up north, or I can still navigate Miami. Both. Exactly. Right. And so just understanding how metrics of business works, but also understanding the psychology behind it can take somebody very far.
Absolutely. It sounds like your 3/4 or a trimester type of mindset is like how farmers plant, right? Except you forget about the winter season because you shouldn't have a freaking winter season, but you plant the seeds, you water those seeds, you harvest those seeds, and then you just go back to planting. Right? You know, we don't, in business, you don't need to have a winter.
You don't ever need to have a winter. We actually make more money during the holiday season because people automatically want to spend. They've been systematically conditioned to spend money. They're ready to spend. And so it's like, hey, you just have to set yourself up for that. And so if they want to spend already, why not create something in Q2 to make them spend money with you more?
Absolutely.
Yeah, man. And so that takes me into my second part question for you.
Yes.
You know, how does, you know, teaching life insurance and everything, do you feel like you want your kids to get into this kind of teaching or anything if you have kids one day?
I want my kids to do whatever they want to do in their life. I'll set them up with cash value life insurance policies so they can do whatever they want in their life. Because of my own upbringing, I'll also probably breed my children to hang out with me at work. But if they don't want to, that's cool. You know, like that. I was very attached as a kid to go to work with my dad. And so for me, I always wanted a kid. I'm engaged now, and I tell her I'm going to keep having, if we have girls, I'm going to keep going until I have a little dude. Like I need a little dude to come hang out with me at work. Right. But I think I'm not attached to what they do to my children, and I don't have children yet. So I'm just projecting in the future, and that could change again, but it would be cool. I feel like there's a lot of the wealthy families, they do all stay in business together, and then they hand that down for generations. The Waltons, the Rockefellers, the Morgans, all these families. But then the Vanderbilts are an example of a family that you had one bad apple who got greedy and they messed up the generational wealth. So I'm not attached to that. It's an interesting question. I haven't really thought that far in the future. I think I'm always going to support them coming to learn from me and coming to learn from Yuritsa, my fiance, because we both have different strengths in the business, but we work together. We run the office together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so it's cool to be able to do that. So when the kids come to work, they'll see how mom and dad work together and see how we build and how we connect with each other. But I'm not married to the idea that they would have to be in the business. Again, we'll see how that changes in the
So I do want to present years. That dynamic as well. We live in a day and age where, because history repeats itself to a certain extent, where the conversation of the man is supposed to work and just provide and a woman stay at home and everything, you know, is starting to resurface.
Yes.
And so in today's society, to me, that's not a feasible mindset off of the threshold of there's women of high value.
Absolutely.
And so just like you said, you run the office with her. And so what would life be like if she wasn't part of the office with you and she just at home?
It would be more challenging to run the business because she's a key part of the business. If I didn't have her all together, it would be a different conversation. Like it would be, I would just have to do it. I'm the type of person that if God forbid something happened, I would go produce and I'd figure it out on my own and I'd be fine. But when we have kids and she needs to watch the kids, that's okay. I think we haven't really had those conversations yet 100%. Whatever she wants to do is cool with me. If she wants to stay home and raise the kids, I'm cool with that. And I'll hire someone to replace her. And if she wants to work in the business, maybe we'll get a nanny or an au pair at that time. Those are kind of the only two options, right? You either they go raise the family, the wife goes and raises the kids, or you guys work together or go work in separate careers. I think working together is super valuable. And then, if you're working together, I think there's also time at that point, whenever we're at the right place, that she'll be able to go take care of them in the meantime too. Yeah. That's a good question.
In working with
I need her to be
your
here.
somewhat significant other, that can also present its own challenges as well. And so how do you keep the two separate?
You don't. Most of the people that I have talked to about it, even Grant Cardone and Elena Cardone, Brandon Dawson and Allie Dawson, Matt and Sheena Sapala, who were my mentors when I first got into the insurance business, there is no separate. It's your life now. I think it's a hoax to think that you can separate it. We can go out to dinner and we can enjoy ourselves and we can watch a movie, or we can go away on vacation and we can do our best not to think about business. But if that's your life, I think as a business owner, this is just my own mindset, because this is how I grew up, is if you're a business owner, you always got to be thinking about your business.
Yep.
And if we're both running the business together, then you just do it all the time together. It is your life. I don't know why it has to not be your life. I feel like we live in a world where they're like, oh, you got to separate your business from your home. I think that's a challenge. I think you should be business all the time, because your business allows you to live your home life the way you want to live your home life. And we don't really separate it. We don't really separate. When we come home, she usually comes home. We have a dog. She walks the dog. I come home a couple hours later, and the first thing we do is talk about business. Now, if we're out to dinner, we still probably talk about business most of the time, but when we're away on vacation, we're still going to talk about business, but we're also do our best to stay present and enjoy where we're at. I don't think we're not present, but I don't think that there's a need to separate.
Gotcha. Okay. No, good answer. And
this is my personal opinion, despite what most people think.
I want to get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation. And so what happens when somebody says, hey, I want to work with you? Walk us through that process of what it's like to officially join the good side.
Sure. So if somebody says to me personally that they want to come work with me, then on the spot, I'm gonna look at their eyes, look at their body language, listen to their language. I'm big on consciousness and being attentive to what people say and understanding what they say and what they mean. So if people say words like or I think or I guess or sorta or kinda, I'm probably gonna tell them not to work with me. I'm looking for affirmative language when I talk to people. If that's how somebody comes and talks to me and I look at them, like Sebastian came up to me at the event, 17 years old, said, Josh, I want to work with you. What do I have to do? And I said, well, what do you like to do? He's like, I love to read. I'm in school, but I want to better my life. And I said, what book are you reading? He's reading The 48 Laws of Power. These are all the right answers, right? And so, insert good personal development book here. If that's what you do, then I'll have a conversation with you. And usually Yuritsa runs the onboarding and recruiting. So she'll interview you. If she likes you, she'll tell me to come in and meet you. And then I'll meet you. And then I'll make the final feel of whether I think you're a good fit for the business. And it has nothing to do with your resume. Nothing to do with anything where you come from. Nothing to do with anything beside how you communicate. I'm big on that. Your eye contact, your language, your affirmativeness, if you speak in absolutes. I'm going to ask you, for all those people that are waiting, I'm going to ask you what your goals are. You better have an answer. I'm going to ask you what you want to do in your life and what you like to do. And if you say, I don't know, I don't really, you're not the right person. I want somebody that knows what they want, knows where they're going towards. And that can change over time, but just somebody that's definite in their life. And then they're going to get started. And in the insurance business, you got to get your life insurance license. You got to get contracted with the different carriers. We're captive. I mean, we're not captive. So most companies are captive. All you got to do at Primerica or Northwestern Mutual or New York Life is just get contracted through this one carrier. We're independent. So you got to get contracted with like 10 carriers.
Gotcha.
So it takes a little bit more time, but that whole process takes a couple weeks. And then we have a training system for 2 weeks of getting you off the ground, and then
off to the races,
and then build a list, invite those people, and present.
Gotcha. Okay, no, that's a good perspective. I was more catered towards the consumer.
Oh, the consumer,
but that's good to know that side too, though.
Cool.
You know?
So that when I think of people working with me, that's what I think. Now, on the flip side, cool. As a client, right? If somebody wants to work with me. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to fact find. I'm going to ask questions so I can figure out what is the number one thing that you're looking for. I don't want to give you one thing if you're looking for something else. So I'm going to ask some questions on figuring out what is best for you based on what product are you looking for, why you want that. They have no idea
what they're looking for.
If they have no idea what they're looking for, I'm going to ask them questions about their financial situation to determine why they buy things.
Gotcha.
And what they're looking for in the things that they buy. They don't have to necessarily know the different types of life insurance or know what annuities are. But if they want A, B, and C, this is for them. If they want D, E, and F, I need to give them this.
Okay, so let's role play.
Yes. All right, cool.
Walk me through it.
All right, cool. Hey, Rich, thanks for taking the time to connect today.
Hey, Josh, thanks.
Absolutely. What can I get you more information on?
I don't know. I like what you have going on. You know, I like the word infinite banking. I just want to know more.
Cool. So is the infinite banking concept something you're looking for more information on?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. On a scale of 1 to 10, how much do you know about it now?
2.
2. What do you know about it now?
The word infinite banking.
The word infinite banking. Where'd you hear about it?
I heard about it from you. You know, I saw your ad, or I actually saw you walking around on live, you know, handing out flyers for your last event, all that stuff.
Cool. Awesome. Well, the cool thing is if you're a 2, you're way better off than most people. So that's awesome. And if you've seen some videos on social media, then you know a lot more than most people also. So right now, when you buy things financially, what are you looking for specifically?
When I buy things financially, I'm looking for longevity.
Longevity? Cool. Are you more of a get rich quick kind of guy or
No.
build wealth over time kind of guy?
Definitely build wealth over time.
Cool. So what kind of stuff do you like to invest in and put your money into now?
I like to put my money into people.
People? Cool. And are there any financial instruments that you put money into?
I put money into, I do have a couple offices where they're like a lease, sublease.
Okay, cool. Do you own them or you're just leasing them?
Well, just leasing them, yeah.
Okay, cool. Do you have any stocks, bonds, mutual funds, any of that?
Nope.
Crypto, anything like that?
Nope.
Cool. So you're not necessarily looking for like what's giving you the most return.
Yeah.
You're mostly looking to build a good foundation.
Yep.
All right, cool. And when you're talking about investing into people, when you're investing into your offices, what are you looking for as a return on that? Obviously, you know, you're not going to get a numerical return on investment investing in people, but what's the reason that you invest in there? What do you want out of that?
I never thought about the numerical value of it, but
Right.
the reason why I do it is because it's just people multiplication. So, you
Cool.
know, multiplying my hours per day.
Cool.
So if I only have 24 hours and I get 50 people, you know, then I have way more than 24 hours to operate at capacity.
Awesome. So buying your time back is the most important thing for you?
Yeah.
Cool. Why is that important for you?
Because I honestly want to be off grid. I'm part of me, you know, I have 2 different personalities. There's money bag rich, there's mastermind rich. And so there's I want to deal with people and I don't want to deal with people.
I understand.
And so just being able to disconnect from myself, yet still live at a comfortable lifestyle, that's what I want.
Absolutely. I totally understand. That's awesome. I'm very similar. I have money consciousness. I put them back together also, but I got money success Josh that wears a nice suit and feels good and looks good. And then I got tank top and shorts Josh that wants to read at the pool all day or go away and lay at the beach. So I totally understand. All right. So what's most important to you is building a foundation, laying down the groundwork for you to live a good life and get off the grid at some point. All right. Perfect. So you're going to need some form of income at that time period where you can have passive income that's going to pay you out so you can still live a life off the grid but in prosperity. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Do you have anything that's going to do that for you now beside your business?
Besides my business, yes. I get disability from the military.
Cool. And so if you went off the grid today, would that cover everything you need?
Not everything.
Okay,
No.
cool. And so the rest of it you supplement with your business.
Yeah.
So growing your business is the number one way that you're going to achieve your end goal.
Yeah.
Cool. Why is getting off the grid important to you?
Getting off the grid is important to me because, just the deeper I dive into the psychology world, the deeper I understand that we kind of live in a matrix.
Yeah.
And so not being tied to do something every day, if we were to go back a couple hundred years, life was a lot more simple.
Absolutely.
Where we weren't in an age of digital deluge and instant text messages didn't exist. And you wouldn't hear from people for a week and
Yes.
it wouldn't be like, oh my God, this person's probably dead. It would just be like, hey, I'm just waiting to hear back from this person,
Absolutely.
And so getting back to a more not connected lifestyle is something that I want. It's not that I want to be disconnected from people. It's just I don't want to have instant access to everything, and
Yes.
likewise towards me.
That's awesome. Because if you said the opposite, then life insurance would definitely not be for you.
Okay.
But life insurance is a long-term game plan. Even the guy that founded the infinite banking concept, he grew up in the forestry business. So he was used to building out systems that would take 40 years to actually come into fruition. And life insurance works a lot the same way. How old are you now?
32.
32. Are you married, kids, single?
No.
No?
I got
Cool.
a girl.
Got a girl? Cool. All right, awesome. So really the death benefit aspect of it, of life insurance, is not the most important part of it for you,
Okay.
right? It's really the cash value aspect, so you can get off the grid and have something paying for you for the rest of your life, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All right. And so a lot of people would say, put your money into the market. It's going to give you more returns. The challenge is if the year before you went to go get off the grid, the market crashed, it usually does 30 to 50%, you would lose 30 to 50% of everything you just worked for, and your whole plan would have to change. So I like life insurance because it's something that's guaranteed, never going to go down. You'll get a consistent rate of return. There's opportunities to get a little bit more growth. But if you're in it for longevity and you want to set up a system to be able to pay you out while you get off the grid for the rest of your life, there is nothing like life insurance out there. Hands down, with maturity, with time, there is no other investment possible out there that it can even come close to the infinite banking concept using whole life insurance, because your dividends that you'll receive will pay you out for the rest of your life. And this is exactly what the Rockefellers have done, what the Morgans have done, what many wealthy families have done with their money. In fact, the whole Walton family, Sam Walton, who started Walmart, their whole family has massive life insurance policies, because this is how they can pay generations to come for kids, grandkids, and pay themselves out so that they don't have to worry about money ever again. So if you wanted to reverse engineer how much money you were going to have when you were going to get off the grid, how much money would you want to be paid out monthly on top of your disability so you can live in prosperity?
Without the business and stuff?
Yep.
Maybe,
How much extra income would you want?
Maybe about like 20,000.
Okay, cool. 20,000 a month. Cool. So that's $240,000 a year. So in order to have at dividend rates of 5% at $240,000 times 5, that's $1.2 million a year for a 20-year period of time. We're going to need about $20 million in a life insurance policy by the time you decide to do that. And so if we're going to reverse engineer that, we're going to have to fund that policy. You're going to want to do that 20 years from now. Is that accurate?
Sure.
20 years from now? Cool. So, without crunching numbers, but we're going to have to start putting about $100,000 to $200,000 a year into a policy. And you'll be able to divert that money to your future, and it'll never go down. It'll never go away. It'll always be there. Life insurance itself has been around for over 150 years since the Civil War. And it's the tried and true best place to put your money. And so if you're going to divert energy into it, that's where I would put my money.
So life insurance is like the new 401k.
Life insurance is the OG 401k.
Gotcha.
Before the 401k messed everything up and told everyone to put money in the market. Really, a pension plan is an annuity. And Henry Ford was the first person to implement the 401k so he could keep people in his business. And pensions previously are annuities. You could put money into an annuity too, but life insurance is going to allow you to have more access to it in early years. An annuity you can't touch till you're past 59 and a half. I have both. So we might sit down and decide that you want to have a little bit of both. But 401ks replaced pensions, and pensions are just annuities that are ran by corporations and governments.
Gotcha.
So I do both of these things. Okay. If you want access to the money before you're 59 and a half, you got to front load life insurance company or life insurance policy. If you don't care about the money being till after you're 60, then an annuity could be good. And you might say, let's do a little bit of both. Would you consider looking at annuities too, or you just want to stick with life insurance?
Maybe both. And so how would it work if I have... And so the misconception that I've always had as well is like life insurance through the military.
Heard. That's a term policy that you have,
I believe.
Right. So that's going to be there for you. It's going to help you out. I would, it's free, right? You don't pay for it.
No.
So it's just, to me, it's just a cherry on top or gravy on top. We don't have to cancel it or change it or anything. That's just added bonus that gets there. But if you want to use it as a banking system, you have to do something outside of what the military gives you. The military is going to give you enough to make sure that no one has to suffer for a couple of years if God forbid something happens, right? Like, who's the beneficiary of your policy for the military now?
Nobody.
Nobody?
Yeah.
No, somebody has to get it if something happens.
No, I don't have anybody on it.
You don't have anybody on it?
No one.
So who would be who gets that money if God forbid something happens to you? You don't know?
It goes back to the military. No,
really?
It doesn't go anywhere. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if you were going to get for your new life insurance policy, for you to create your own banking system, who would be the beneficiary for your policy?
I would probably put I'll probably put Dan on it.
Dan? All right, cool. Awesome. Is Dan a family member or a friend?
He's a friend.
Friend? Cool.
Yeah.
Does he have an insurable interest in you, meaning that if God forbid anything happens, he'd be at a financial detriment?
Yeah, he's the CEO of my company.
Okay, cool. Then we can do that because they have to have some form of financial connection to you in order for them to do that. Do you have any cash, existing brokerage accounts, or anything in liquid asset now? You do? Yeah. Okay, cool. And on a monthly basis, would it be something that you'd want to put in on a monthly basis or an annual basis to fund a life insurance policy?
It depends.
On what specifically?
Well, I guess it would depend on how much I want that I would end up paying monthly or yearly to begin with. But yeah, because at the same time as thinking for the future, I also don't want to neglect the present.
Totally understand.
And so depending on how much it limits me from doing what I'm trying to do now,
yes,
but also prepare for the future, I guess it would just depend on the amount.
Okay, so is the 20,000 in cash flow 20 years from now really your main objective, or do you expect some of your business to compensate for some of that?
Definitely the business will compensate.
So let's say that we could fund some of your business stuff with your life insurance policy today. Outside of the business, how much extra money would you want that to be able to compensate for you? 5, 10,
yeah, an
15?
extra like 5.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So then we can cut all those numbers down about 25%. I'll give you all the different options, but we can also use the policy to fund your business so that you can take more money from the life insurance company and use it to go fund and grow and scale your business so that you can accelerate that time period faster. Is that your number one focus right now financially?
Yeah.
Okay. So if I could show you a way that you can cut that time period down for you to get off the grid by using a cash value life insurance policy to be able to fund your business and cut that time period down so you can achieve all your dreams in a shorter amount of time, would that be something that you'd be open to looking at some numbers for?
Yeah. All
right, perfect. I'm going to show you an example of something and then that I've done already, and then I'm going to go right into showing you how this would look for you. Does that sound fair?
Sounds good.
All right, perfect. Bang.
No, that was good. That was a good combo.
I need to get that and send that to my team so they can watch that.
Yeah. It was an authentic conversation.
It was. That's exactly what I would do too. Okay. I would ask you a bunch of questions. The whole time I'm searching for 3 things, and I learned this from Grant Cardone. What is the product that they need? Not what they asked for. Because if you said, hey, can I get a term policy, but your goal was to create cash flow, like the two don't go hand in hand. You need that. All right. Then the second is, why do they want it and why now? Right. Now I'm looking for your what, your why, and then how do I present that to you? And so I'm already talking about the concept of it on a macro level. I know I need to show you some numbers for how that's going to make that happen so you can see it in as tangible as a life insurance policy can be.
Yeah.
And then I move on from there.
That's dope.
I learned that from Grant Cardone.
That's dope. And so when people end up working with you because we also have to, we just went over the numbers for what SSA.gov put out.
Yeah.
So if a regular person still wants to be able to get ahead by doing life insurance policies and stuff like that, what's like the minimum that you would be able to professionally suggest? Like, hey, you put this a month towards your policy or a year towards your policy and you'll be able to do this or whatever.
Yeah, it depends on reverse engineering what we just did. If you take everything we just talked about and divide everything by 10, or take a 0 off the end of it, could also make sense. It depends what you want to use it for, because you could just use life insurance to have $20,000 in cash 5 years from now that you borrow to buy a car, instead of $20,000 a month 20 years from now so you can get off the grid. Like, there are different goals. And so it really comes down to what they are looking for it for. And if they're looking to just protect their family during this one little period of time, then maybe a term policy is best for them. If they're looking to build cash into a policy, they need a whole life. But what are they building the cash up for? If they want to buy real estate, I have some people come to me and say, hey, I only want to put in $100 a month and I want to be able to buy a house in a year. And I honestly tell them to go to Las Vegas and take that $100 a month, wait a year, and go take that $1,200 and go put it on the roulette table and see what happens. Because you're not going to be able to buy a house anywhere for that amount of money.
Facts.
So it depends on what you want to use it for, and it comes down to being able to be real about your money and be money conscious, which is my big thing. Being able to be conscious of your money. Because if you say, hey, I want to get from here to California in 5 hours, but I need the car to be able to make that happen.
Yeah, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. You need to get a plane. Yeah, the car might cost you $50,000. And if that's all you got, you need to drive. And instead of 5 hours, it's going to take you 3 days.
Yeah.
But if you really want to get there in 5 hours, you need to get a plane. And that plane is going to cost you X amount of dollars instead. And it's a different conversation to have.
100%.
So it comes a lot of times I have to assist my clients with getting down to what is it they really, really want. Is it most important just to get to California at some point, but stay in their budget? Or do they need to get to California in 5 hours, no matter what? And if so, this is the price of that. And and then you might say, oh, never mind. It's fine. It can take 10 hours. Okay, cool. Well, here's a helicopter. Oh, no. That's still too much. It can take me a couple days. All right. Here's a car. Here's a good car. Do you want a Toyota or a Ferrari?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And then like, no, okay, the Ferrari's still too much. All right, here's a Mercedes or a Toyota. All right, the Mercedes does the job. It's in your price range. Gets you there in a couple of days. Cool. Let's do the Mercedes.
Something for everybody, regardless.
It just depends. I don't know if that was a good
analogy.
No,
that was great. That was great.
Some people want to get there in plane style, but they don't want to pay for the plane. They might need to just get a car for right now. I would love to have a plane, but we got to drive. I wish we took our infinite capital helicopter over here, but I'm not there yet.
It's all good. It's all good. But no, that makes sense. And so one of the last questions, I want to leave you with is, for your team, how do you give back to your team? Because I want to say a lot of it has to be like commission based, right?
Yes.
And so what are some incentives you give towards your team, especially in executing conversation on a level that we just did?
Absolutely. So incentives for the team, we give a ton of training. Everybody that comes into our office says, Josh, I've done multiple companies before, but nobody gives the amount of value that you give. So every morning we have a daily wins meeting with the whole team, and then we do training and we role play. And I call our training chalk talk because I played football growing up. So like I'm doing the X's and O's on the board, and then we role play, which is running the plays. Most places, they just throw you in there. So one is the training and the value you're going to get. You also pay for Cardone University sales training for everybody that's in our office. and give tons of value. I record every single one of our trainings. We have a whole database of resources. So all of those can fall under the resources, training, and value proposition. And then incentives wise, we run contests often. I'm taking 2 of our top salespeople and our office manager to the 10X Business Summit in 2 weeks.
Nice.
So we run contests for that. I don't know why, but one of the contests that works the best is when I just tape $100 bill on the whiteboard and say, whoever does this in this amount of time period gets the $100. We'll get that. That works. It works better. I've offered a cruise before, and the $100 is more motivating than the cruise.
Wow.
I think it's because of the instant gratification and physicality of it. Those are some contests or incentives that have worked. After the event, we all went to Capitol Grill and had an amazing dinner. I think for some people, it may have been their first really nice restaurant, which is cool. I enjoy that. We've done sports games before, but I think it separates into what the value that you're giving somebody on a day-to-day basis, where they're trained really well, and then also have access to the leaders in the office to run appointments for them and still get 50-50 split business. That's big in our industry. Most people just have to figure it out on their own. And then there's also the extra stuff, which is the connections that we create, the contests, incentives, the podcasts, the events. There's not a lot of that at your traditional old school financial firm.
Gotcha. Yeah. No, that's dope.
Yeah,
it's definitely dope, man. Josh, I learned a lot from you today, man.
Thank you.
I learned a lot about your industry. You're very knowledgeable. You can tell you're passionate about it. It's almost like you turned into a different person once we had that conversation, and you could tell the level of which you're willing to help somebody rather than just feeling like a sale, like, oh, he's trying to sell me on this, I'm trying to whatever. And so I feel like that's essential, and where a lot of people fail in traditional and new school marketing nowadays is they don't make that relationship first. And it's hard to sell to somebody or a prospect without breaking the ice or even understanding their needs. You're providing at that point instead of selling. And provision versus a sale will always triumph at the end of the day. So Josh, man, this was great. If somebody wanted to work with you team wise or consumer wise, where could they find out more information about you or look you up, anything?
Sure. Just text me. My cell phone is 305-345-9102. I learned to just give one place where they can find you. And the best place to find me is just call or text me, and I'll reach out to you directly, and I'll put you in the right place. If I tell you to go to Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and all these other places, you might go look at them all and then not connect with me. Just text me or call me if you're serious about connecting. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to come here. I think it's cool. I want to get off me and my coach, Jeffrey Combs, talk about getting off the grid at some point too. And we always say the only way to get off the grid is to make it on the grid. You got to play the game on the chessboard to get off the chessboard. And I mean, I love what I do because the whole concept of it is to get off the chessboard of the banking, get out the grid of the money grid. And that's it's all aligned. And I think it's a perfect place to have a conversation, and I'm super grateful for the opportunity to be here, and thank you.
No, absolutely. And, we always like to do something special if we can, and give it back to our viewers, or because a lot of them are new people or people trying to figure it out or people stuck in their business. We get a lot of that. And so we like to give something back. And so we don't know when his next event is, but if you really want to go and you write us an email, you already have my email. You'll find it. I want you to do that much for yourself as well. We're going to pop something up on the screen during the middle of the episode. We'll pay for your ticket. We'll pay for 2 people's tickets to go to his next event, and make sure that you show up there and you just get the information that he's going to teach. I've been to the beginning of his last event, and I can tell you the atmosphere in that room is absolutely insane. And so if it's something that you feel like you want to be around, you want to learn more, you want to just get in there, and a lot of people's excuse or obstacle, because it might be an actual obstacle, is just getting in the room. And so we'll do that. And so we'll give you more information on when his event's going to be. You know, this episode might be out a little while from now, but it'll definitely be before his event. So just tap in with us. And it's your host, Mastermind Rich, at the end of the day. And as we always say, we look good, we live good. Life is good. Talk to us. We talk back, and we out.